cicadas in there. Great game. 50 seconds to go. Hurts. Deep shot. Hauled in, Devontae.
Sure.
Before the press conferences even start. I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just about how atrocious the defense is.
He's just picking the big guys. Jordan Mailata, he's huge. He'll be good later on. Josh Sweat, he's tall as hell and strong. Let's get him. We'll figure him out. It's working.
Are you ready?
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, as always, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Make sure you're sharing it out. Make sure you're liking it, following. Get over to YouTube and make sure you subscribe over there. Best way to interact with the show is put your comments over on YouTube, and then they appear right on my screen. I can put them up on the screen, and we can interact with each and every one of you. We're working on a phone number, a call-in thing. I have it all created, just haven't tested it out yet, and that'll be the next way. That'll be the next trend. As we talk about all the different trends in sports, what's trending up, what's trending down on this show. There's a comment that I just put just to show you guys how it works with YouTube. Make sure you get on over there. Over here at DSM Media, we are brought to you on all shows by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products. Make sure you check them out, manscaped.com. Use promo code TRENDING at checkout to get you 20% off and free shipping. Plus, let them know I sent you from Trending in the AM. So make sure you check them out. Yeah, we're live as we've been all week. I've got my soundboard somewhat working here, trying to figure this out as we go. Jason, how you doing?
How in the hell are you, Phil?
Fantastic. Did you hear that great music?
I love it. It's bringing the show to the next level. I told you, man, soundboards are the way to go. And
I got that. We got the. I can give you a round of applause. You know, when you do a good job.
If I do something bad, you got to come up with a boo.
If you have something weak,
if I say something wrong, yeah.
Give you the cat sound. I can shoot you for your bad opinion. You know, I got a few. Got to work on that here. Anyway, we got a jam. Yeah, we got a jam-packed show today. We're going to talk Sixers. Another loss last night to a really shorthanded Miami Heat team. Flyers on a 3-game winning streak. COVID wreaking havoc across all the major sports right now. So we're going to talk about all that stuff, but we got to talk with the breaking news that happened late last night. It's not a Philadelphia sports story, but it's a pretty big national story for football, and that's Urban Meyers, head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the 2-win Jacksonville Jaguars, fired finally last night by Khan, owner of the Jaguars. First off, I mean, my first initial thought is, well, it took long enough. You know, I mean, he should have been fired already. All the different things he's done wrong this year. But what I want to say as my first comment of it, and I'll let you jump in on it, is that I am so glad to see a coach or a GM or an owner in this case, admit his mistake right away. He didn't wait he got signed to a very long, lucrative contract, and he fired him right away. All too often in sports, we see owners and GMs, Howie Roseman for one of them with first and second round picks, hold on too long to try to just so the money's not wasted. So I got lots of respect for Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, for cutting ties right away with Urban Meyers. And, you know, I'm sure Khan will be on the hook for a bunch of salary over the next few years, but you know what? That's the best thing for his franchise, and they did it. So I think it's a really, really great decision on his part to do that.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the guy, the frustrating part to me is that there's so many people that saw this coming. Like, there's so many people out there, like NFL analysts, like just the average fan could tell you that Urban Meyer was not going to be a good fit in the NFL. Not just because of his coaching style and the fact that it's hard to go from the college ranks to the NFL, but Urban Meyer as a person. Urban Meyer is one of the most controversial figures, you know, out there. I mean, the guy is just always getting into trouble. There's always drama surrounding this guy. I mean, we've heard all these reports coming out all year about players not, you know, respecting him, him calling, his coaching staff losers. And then, of course, this most recent report that came out yesterday that he actually kicked a kicker. I mean, like, I was just talking to you before, off the air before the show. It's like, if that was anybody other in any other job, not only would they have been fired, they could be facing like criminal charge. Like, you can't just kick somebody, like, regardless if it's whatever. And then he says to them, well, I'm the boss. I can do whatever F I want. Like, no, dude, you can't. Like, this is not 25 years ago. Like, yeah.
It should have been allowed 25 years ago.
Well, it shouldn't have been allowed ever. But my point is this guy is just not a good person. So not only was he not a good coach in the NFL, and it showed, I mean, with their 2-11 record and the fact that Trevor Lawrence, unfortunately, looks like a train wreck. And unfortunately, I don't blame Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up next. I mean, this is the right decision because you've got a young rookie, first-round pick, invested quarterback, supposed to be the cornerstone of your team. And he looked better in college last year than he did. Like, he looks like he's regressed in his first year in the NFL. And a lot of that could be put on the tumultuous season, the culture that Urban Meyer has built there in Jacksonville. So it's really great for him as well. It's really great for Juice Robinson, the running back, second-year running back down there. I mean, the guy's getting the ball 3-4 times a game. Chenault, the wide receiver, another young prospect right there, getting no attention whatsoever. Marvin Jones, I mean, walked out on practice, had to be encouraged to come back. And, he said that the argument with Urban Meyer was settled in a much, I guess you want to say, politer way than what the reports are saying. But you can read between the lines that there's still some things there. So for the betterment of the whole team, betterment of the franchise, the betterment of these young guys, it's great and it's refreshing to see the owner, because the owner could have easily said what was just his first year. Let's give him time. Let's tweak the coaching. Let's tweak the assistant coaches. Let's do this or that. Get some more talent. He could have used so many cliche excuses. He didn't. He saw the writing on the wall. He saw that this guy was not the right guy for this team and franchise, and he cut ties right away. Which like I said, I'm super glad that he did it.
Well, it's funny that you say that because that was the talk on Twitter. Like, I saw so many people tweeting, like, when is Shad going to get his head out of his ass? Comments like that. Like, is this guy going to actually let this guy get away with this? Like, just so many people saying, how does this guy have a job? And now, like I said, the report comes out yesterday about the kick. It's almost like the owner almost had to do something at that point. Like, if he didn't at that point, then you would almost be thinking that, like, is the guy not reading the room? Like, because
I mean, we could go back to, what was it, in October when the video surfaced of him, dancing with that girl and grabbing that girl at a bar. I mean, and owner Shad Khan, I mean, he said clearly, he's like, well, he's got to re-earn the trust. He's got to be a better person, blah, blah, blah. All those cliche terms. And you thought, okay, this is going to be a long, drawn-out thing. He was just doing his due diligence, I think. He was just trying to really see if it was a mistake. But then if you just follow the track record, hiring the guy with racist comments in his past in the offseason as a strength and conditioning coach, and then the thing in the bar, it's just been a domino effect. And he just sees every time he gives him a chance. I've never seen a coach need so many chances his first year in the NFL. It's not like this has been a 3 or 4 year stretch of bad decisions. This is all the decisions in less than a full year as head coach. So, again, it's the right decision. But what's sad about this right decision, at some point, Urban Meyer's in the next 12 months will be coaching again. Back in college, but he will be coaching because college-wise, his mind is great for the game.
But that to me is also sad. You bring up a good point because to me, this guy should not have a coaching job ever again. I know I keep hashing on the kicking thing, but like, dude, that's not okay. Like, it's not okay to physically hit somebody.
I hit my employees at the pizza shop all the time.
I mean, but it shouldn't just get glossed over. But you're right. He's going to get another job. And if he doesn't get a coaching job, he'll get a job as an analyst talking about, or he'll be doing his tour, his book tour. And like, he's going to have something. And I mean, it's a shame in this country how things like that happen. I mean, we saw the guy that just got off for the shooting. Like, and he's going around like touring.
You're talking Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah, he's touring the Cowboys locker room.
You're going to bring way too much politics into this.
Yeah, but it's not politics. It's that to me is just absurd. I mean, it's absurd.
It is politics because there's some people that really think he's a good person. And and I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to annoy. I'm not going to piss off my one follower by
I got you. My point is the point I'm making is that we shouldn't be putting these people on pedestals, and the problem is that I think a lot of the reason why a lot of these college coaches struggle when they come to the NFL is that NFL players are getting paid more than they are.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like think about it. In college, they're like paid a lot of money. I mean,
college coaches are paid. The top college coaches are paid more than NFL coaches.
Exactly. So they're making all this money while the college players are making nothing. Like obviously,
I mean that's another whole topic right there for a show is about the whole the college players being allowed to make some money off their images now, which is great.
Well, no,
but yeah, I get what you're saying there.
But so if you think about it, think about the dynamic. So they're they're making all this money. College players are making nothing. So now you come to the NFL, all of a sudden you're not making more money than their players. So you have to earn their respect. You can't just come in there and think, well, I'm Urban Meyer. I did this in XYZ program. No, bud, this is different. This is a different level. And that's it's not just Urban Meyer. We saw it here with Chip Kelly. I mean, I've seen it with Nick Saban. Like all these coaches that come from the college, like you would think that it would translate, but it doesn't. And that's why.
Especially, I think the majority of the ones that it doesn't translate are the ones that have had massive, massive success in college. Even we go back to Chip Kelly, Urban Meyer, all these guys, the ones that have had success. I mean, Matt Rule's a college coach. I mean, he's not having success, but he's not falling on his face. The mid-level coaches or the assistant coaches that have gone from offensive coordinator in college to offensive coordinator in the pros, and then they don't translate. And I talked on, I believe it was El Parcero's Parcero Con show, which dropped on DSM and Parcero Con, YouTube pages yesterday. It was a brief little interview I did with him, and we were talking about this topic. We were talking about how I brought it up all the time during the Brett Brown era with the Sixers. How he used to talk about building a program. This isn't college. This isn't a program. These are grown-ass men that are getting paid more than the coaches. You got to treat them as adults, and you have to treat them as adults and as employees, not as college kids that you're trying to groom into good young men. You got to just do your job. Here's your job. I'll give you the tools to do the job, and that's it. And that's why these big-name guys fail so much from college to the pros is because it's also why I never wanted to see Jay Wright go to the NBA. Because Jay Wright is a great college coach. And I don't know if his way of how he uses the term program all the time. That's not going to translate to the Sixers. You're not going to go to Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris and say, we're going to try to build a program here. No. We're just trying to win ball games and win a title right now. And that's all it is. What we do after is totally different. So, yeah, it's a shame. And I think the next topic is, because this is now how many in a row that have failed? Will you slowly start to see NFL teams get shy and gun shy against bringing in these college coaches?
I mean, absolutely. You should if they're smart. But unfortunately, if history repeats itself, as it does so often, right. I don't necessarily know if that's the case. But I do think that, you brought up a good point. And about the transition, and obviously being higher level guys as opposed to those, you brought up like a Matt Rule, but a lot of that too, I think goes hand in hand. Like, I think when you're the higher level guys, they kind of get more control of the teams in college as opposed to those coaches that are middling guys that are just the coach, where they're kind of actually, picking the players and all the other stuff, like almost being like a GM. Fair. And I think it's like an ego thing. Like it's basically being like, well, I'm the head guy.
Like in college, they are basically the de facto. There's no GMs, there's athletic directors, but the head coaches are the ones going out in college, doing the recruiting, going to players' houses. I mean, their assistant coaches are going to the second and third stringers' houses.
Yeah.
But the head coaches are the ones going out trying to get those 5-star, 4-star recruits to the quarterbacks of your team. So they are like the de facto GM in college. So,
But that's
when they have
that's what I
super
mean.
success, yeah, that's
When they
that-
come to the NFL, they're now all of a sudden they're not the boss in
Right.
most cases, but they have the mindset that I'm the guy. Like, and you're right. Like, you have to treat adults differently than you treat young men. Like college, let's face it, 18 to 22-year-old, once they're in the NFL, it's like, dude, it's a different animal. And you, I just don't see it changing, but you're right. That's a great question. Like, will teams start to go another route?
Before they hired Nick Sirianni, one of the hot names was Lincoln Riley. I mean, I know he's moved on from Oklahoma to other. Did he go to USC or I forget where he went to. But he was another hot name that everybody was saying was going to go to the NFL. You just might not see it anytime soon. I can't think of Nick Saban's not going to leave for the NFL again, obviously, because he's already tried that, done that. It's not worked out. But I would be very hesitant of a GM or owner of a team to even talk to these top five, whoever the coach is at Georgia, the LSU coach, the Clemson coach, those guys. I would just be gun shy about bringing them away from their college programs and into the pros because, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and it's just not working out for anybody.
I mean, the only one that I've seen succeed is probably in Seattle.
Pete Carroll.
That's it.
He didn't succeed at first. He
No,
failed.
but I'm saying, but he has.
Was it the Jets his first coaching
He
job?
didn't succeed his first time, but my point is he did. But I think he learned a lesson, his first time around. So maybe kind of
that doesn't always happen either. Chip Kelly failed here with Philly, then went to San Francisco and failed even harder.
He didn't learn.
And then it was so funny, and I really wished he would have done it. But Oregon was looking for a head coach, and there was talks that he was going to leave UCLA to go back to, Oregon Ducks, and that would have been such like a full circle moment right there. Go to the national title game in Oregon, go to the Eagles, fall on your face, go to San Francisco, fall on your face, go to UCLA, and his first few years have terrible seasons. This year was his first winning season since his second year with the Eagles.
Well,
that was a long time ago. The last time he had a football team that had a winning record.
Well, and then to add insult to injury, he leaves the Eagles. Peterson comes in, and within a year, they win the Super Bowl. Like, that's even worse. Like, you basically totally ruined the team, and it just proved even more that you were the reason why that team was bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So, correct decision. Their offense coordinator is taking over the Jags. It'll be interesting to see if anything changes with them. I'll be curious to see. Trevor Lawrence, some people loved him as the number one pick. Some did not. I understand he went number one because he's a quarterback, and quarterbacks always go 1, 2 through 10, basically, it feels like anymore. So I like that. I'd like to see if anything could change with him, if they get Juice Robinson more involved, some of these wide receivers more involved. But
I'd love to see Doug Peterson get a shot. Speaking of Doug.
That was going to be the next thing. There's a few names out there. Doug Peterson is going to be the head coach next year, whether it's Chicago, whether it's the Raiders, whether it's Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville would be the best spot for him because it's a young team.
Groom a quarterback.
Yeah, he's already groomed Peterson, Carson Wentz. He's got that quarterback mentality.
Groom McNabb. He basically
he was in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes as well.
I think he's a perfect fit for Jack. I think because he's a good guy. They need that going from what they just came out of. Like I said, I'd love to get him.
If I was Khan, I would be going out and reaching out to him now. I know you just said that, the offensive coordinator is going to be your interim head coach for the rest of the season, but Doug Peterson's going to have a lot of suitors, a lot of them.
Yeah, he should be on the phone.
He should be on the phone talking to him right now. At least, even if he doesn't want to start coaching till next season or till the offseason, be like, yo, let's get a deal locked up and signed now because, the Chicago Bears are going to go all in, I think, for him. And I think the Raiders will go all in for Doug Peterson as well.
Well, because coaching's not free agency, so or you could sign they could sign him now.
Right now, they could sign him. Absolutely. At least that gives him the opportunity to start getting his coaching staff together. It gives him the opportunity to start evaluating the talent. He could just sign the contract and sit in the owner's box for the rest of the season, and just evaluate and take notes. And you brought up a good point. They need a good person. I mean, he's genuinely a nice guy, Doug Peterson. You're not going to see him dancing with girls. You're not going to see him kicking players. he's going to be the complete opposite of Urban Meyer's personality wise. So I think it's a really, really good spot for him to land. Plus, it's Florida. Who doesn't want to live? I know Jacksonville's the top of Florida. It's not Miami Beach or Clearwater Beach, but it's still Florida. And the tax situation's so great down there. Who wouldn't want to live in Florida and work for an owner that's a multi-billionaire like Khan is? So yeah, I think it's a great spot for him.
Absolutely.
All right.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope so.
I didn't think we would spend that much time talking about Urban Meyers there in this show. 21 minutes. Wow. All right, but we got to get more tough conversations here before we get to the Sixers and the Flyers, because and I talked about this on my show last night, Trending for Four Quarters, with Ref the District. Make sure you check out the Ref the District crew. A great Washington. They basically are what we are, DSM Media, but based in D.C. They talk Washington football team, the Wizards, and the Nationals. They're great guys, Trev, Nate, and Stone Dog. So check them out on Twitter, absolutely, and all the social media platforms for them. But we brought it up, and COVID's been going on for almost 2 years. COVID's what got me started into sports talking, into sports writing and stuff like that, because I started doing my last podcast, in the middle of COVID, just as a hobby and stuff like that, and look where it's gone. But I've tried to avoid talking the sensitive subject because it's a very divisive topic, COVID. And I try to stay away from debating vaccinations and protocols and different things just because, like I said, it's sensitive. But in the NHL, the NBA, and the NFL, there is a massive rash outbreak of COVID cases right now. They're not going to do this. But the question is, should they put any of these leagues put a hold on their season for 2, 3, 4 weeks to get past this curve in the locker room, which is obviously spreading massively in all these leagues. I mean, the NHL, Calgary's had 18 guys, 17 guys from their team, the Calgary Flames. It's all over the NBA, multiple locker rooms. I mean, the Sixers have already dealt with it about a month and a half ago, but right now it's intense. And in the NFL, in Monday and Tuesday combined, had about 100 players test positive. Should there be a pause?
Man, it's a very tough question.
It is.
To be honest with you, I think that if it continues down this road, yeah, they should do something. I hate to say that, being the sports fan that I am, and
make this morning show very difficult if we didn't have sports to talk about.
It's just so frustrating because it's like we're all frustrated with COVID. And like you said, it's not. We're not getting into the political side of things and whatever vaccines. I mean, I myself personally, I'm vaccinated, but I don't get into that war. But as far as people have their own opinions, that's on them. But we do have to look at health first in any aspect. And health is more important than sports when it comes down to it. The problem is it's just not going away. We back in 2020, we were thinking, when is this ever going to end? Well, here we are, we're going into 2022, and it's still not ending. It's here. It's going to be here for the long haul. We have to figure out a way where it's going to get more, where we can get this thing in check. Now I get it. I did see that the NFL was kind of looking to possibly changing their protocols, and some of these other leagues where they may even let players play if they have it, but they're vaccinated. Now, here's where that becomes a confusing thing, because in some jobs right now, you can work if you're vaccinated. If you have vaccinated and you have it, but you don't have symptoms, you can work. Absolutely. So if you look at it that way, if you can do it in a normal job, why wouldn't you be able to do it in sports? But I get it with the whole sports thing being like close contact, where that's where it's different.
Sports in the locker rooms, you're all in close contact in the locker room.
Exactly.
I mean, I've heard that, and I think that's an interesting thing that they're talking about. I don't think it'll happen. I wouldn't agree to that at all. But what I've seen things where I forget whether it's the NBA or the NFL, they're talking between the unions and the ownership group about, if you test positive and you're vaccinated, that you only have to return one negative test to come back and play. Things like that. There's lots of rules, that are being worked on to be tweaked. But my biggest issue with the outbreak and whether you play or pause seasons or not is it's putting players that aren't sick right now at an undue disadvantage. We could just talk Washington. Washington football team goes up against the Eagles this Sunday. They have 18 guys, 18 players on the health and safety protocol list right now. So you only have a 53-man roster. You dress 46. You have 9-man, 10-man practice squad team. So literally a third of their team is out. So two things happen. Players that aren't ready to play in the NFL on the practice squad are going to play. Two, you have someone like Tyler Heineke, who's the quarterback of the Washington football team, who's injured and banged up from last week. That's going to be pretty much forced to play because the backup quarterback, Kyle Allen, is on health and safety protocols. So you're going to rush players back from injury quicker than you should because you're shorthanded. There's a lot of things like that. And you're just putting players in a position where their seasons are on the line. Washington's season is on the line. They're 6-7, just like the Eagles and a bunch of other teams fighting for that last wild card spot. And they're going to be shorthanded. Like, and not missing one or two players. We're talking 18 players. So I think that's where the problem is. It's the fact that these players are being put at risk of injury. They're being put at risk to ruin their careers, but yet they're going to have to play. So I think that, going forward, maybe you can't make these changes now in this year. That I know you brought up a taxi. I think you brought up a taxi squad in football and basketball like they had in baseball last year. That's fine to an extent, but I think they need to reevaluate next year, especially if we're going to be here in the long haul with this being an option or an issue in the world, that these leagues need to extend the season to an extent. Okay? Add an extra 2 weeks to the season, stretch it out so that if you have to cancel a week, you've got that 19th week and 20th week at the end of the season to make up games.
That's a great idea.
Work something into the schedule where games can be canceled and made up, so that there's not one team playing 17 games and one team playing 15 games. Find ways in the scheduling system to leave room and buffer for games to be made up. That's personally what I would do.
That's actually a great idea. Like, I don't see them, because let's face it, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, all of them, the almighty dollar runs everything.
Absolutely.
They're not going to cancel these seasons. Like right now, like, would it be the right thing? I'm not saying cancel.
They lost way too much money.
They're not even going to put it off. But you're right. Moving forward, they need to do a better job with preparing for these situations. And they're not. I'm not saying they're not prepared, because obviously they had rules put in place, and obviously. But I think if you realistically look at it, Phil, I think we all kind of saw this coming.
Absolutely.
The closer it gets,
I feel like it's been worse this year than it was last year.
Well, the closer it gets to winter, don't forget, COVID in the summer kind of, not that it goes away, but obviously these kind of viruses kind of dwindle. Mm-hmm. At this time, they kind of become more ferocious. And now you have all these other, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, and I don't propose to know, but you have all these variants going around. There's a lot going on right now. I mean, honestly, a lot of times, a lot of these tests end up being false positive. I mean, you had that with the Rams. One of their players, the tight end, Higbee, the Rams believed that it was a false positive, and he had to take a PCR test, but PCR tests take a day to come back, so he couldn't play on Monday night because of that, and it ended up being a false positive. So the problem is they have to do the right thing, but you're right. Like, I think they need to do a better job with preparing.
This whole idea of I just literally came up with this idea mid-show, and I just came up with this formula right now on the spot for the NFL. Just saying, we've already added a 17th game. It's 18 weeks long. Nobody complains about more football. The more football there is, the better. I mean, football is obviously where the bottom dollar in sports comes from. Why can't you go ahead and have everybody have a bye week in week 9, so that any games that have to get canceled because you have X amount of players on health and safety protocols, that game gets canceled. Then you have that extra bye week 9 to make it up, and then you put an extra week at the end of the season, so that any game that has to get canceled at the end of the season or in the second half of the season gets played that week 19 or week 20. And then if you're a smart team and your team is careful and doesn't have the protocols, you get an extra week off before the playoffs. I mean, it sounds stupid. It sounds simple. But just something simple like that, 2 built-in makeup game weeks, could be the difference of Tyler Heineke playing injured on Sunday and having to hurt himself, or obviously I want the Eagles to beat Washington, but I don't want to beat them because at the cost of somebody's career. You know what I mean? That's not a fair level playing field.
No, I agree. It's definitely something that they need to look into, and hopefully, like I said, who knows what's going to happen here, but it is getting really. I mean, the NHL. You said 14 guys on Washington. Calgary had 18 people at last I saw on their roster, and I don't know how big a hockey roster is. I believe it's probably only like 30.
You don't know, you're the hockey master.
Well, I'm saying I don't know the exact number.
I only invite you on for your hockey knowledge.
There's only like 30.
Anybody want to be my new guest co-host?
Yeah, you're such.
Hold on.
Talking football's got 60 people on a roster.
Sorry, that's the first time I can work that one in there. So
I knew that was coming. He's got to have his fun, guys. He's got to have his fun.
Gotta have my fun. All right, yeah. So we're going to monitor this COVID situation, and since we do the show every morning, I'm sure we're going to be touching on this a lot over the next week or so, as these leagues try to come up with new rules and try to come up with new, health and safety protocols and stuff like that. But it's an interesting topic. You can have this conversation and not get political about the vaccinations and stuff like that. You could just have.
I'm going to nominate you for director of COVID protocols for the NFL.
I'm too much of an a-hole for that, Anyway, you bring up hockey, so we'll do a brief little hockey thing here before we get to Sixers talk here. So hold on, let me get my Flyers overlay up on the screen there. Flyers have now won 3 games in a row, 10 losses in a row, followed by 3 games in a row. So Jason, what's up with the Flyers?
Dude, they're scoring goals. It's not a secret. Score goals, win games.
That's very Booger McFarland on Monday Night Football. If you score more goals, you're gonna win the game. I mean, yeah. No.
I mean, so
why are they scoring more goals? It's literally. I know that the first game that Yao coached as the interim head coach there, it kind of happened in the morning of a back-to-back game. You didn't expect anything against Colorado there. They got blown out 7-5. They still scored 5 goals in that game. Then they lost their next game. But then since then, they've gone on quite the tear here. So what flipped the switch that all of a sudden this team, are they playing more aggressively? Is there been line changes that have affected it? Or is it just that they were just in that bad of a slump and all the players are bursting out of their slumps at the same time?
All of the above. So they've scored 15 goals in their last 4 games. Obviously, they got shut out against the Devils.
They're averaging like 2 goals a game before that.
Yeah. So, but the point is they're not only are they scoring goals, they're scoring power play goals, and they're playing better as a team, and they're showing heart. So all of these, traits that we're missing are all of a sudden there. So obviously, it's not like they just, it's not like they weren't there and now they're there and they appeared. They were there. They were just dormant. The problem was something had to happen. So we talked about this before. Would the coaching change make a drastic change for this team? And I think that the answer is twofold. It's definitely made a difference in the way that they're playing, and it's helping them. I still don't think we can get into the specifics, but I don't think long term, I think there's more that's needed for them to contend. But I'm happy with the way things are going as a fan. Looking at the way that they're playing, they seem hungrier. Mike Yeo at least has a plan, and it's almost like he kind of went back to basics. Like they're not doing anything, extraordinary, but they're just playing sound hockey in all facets of the game. And I mean, it's not a secret that, like I said, the Booger McFarland reference, but when you're scoring goals, it's going to give your defense more confidence. See, the problem is everything in hockey is about confidence.
Absolutely.
And it's about momentum. And when you're not scoring goals, first of all, what that does to your offensive players, it makes them press. So they get they get real nervous, and when they play like tight. They're not having fun because they're, I don't. I didn't play hockey myself. I played baseball. I was a baseball guy. But it would happen in baseball when you're hitting and you're struggling at the plate.
Every game of my life.
And know that you're striking out a lot, and it's like your team's counting on you. You see it a lot of times, like when players go in these major slumps and they're hitting like 200 at the All-Star break. Because the problem, it happened to Bryce Harper last year. Remember when he went on that?
And you solved that problem for Bryce Harper.
No, I'm not talking about this MVP. I'm talking about the year before when he was really in a bad slump before the All-Star break, like where he was hitting like 200.
Right.
It makes you kind of overexert yourself, and you're just not playing loose. And that kind of translates to the whole team and the whole team chemistry. And, when you're scoring goals, it makes your defense say, well, we don't have to, press, because we don't have to, only give up one goal today, or we might win. And it just it's like a trickle effect. So if you look at Carter Hart, since that major blow-up game, against Colorado, when he gave up the 7 goals, or I think he gave up 6 goals.
The Colorado game, we lost the Colorado game 7-5.
Well, he's 2-1.
I don't know if he got there from Mall or not.
He's 2-1 with a .938 save percentage at a .203 goals against. So it's obvious that not only is the offense helping them win, it's helping Carter Hart play better, get back to where he was a couple weeks ago.
Right.
So overall, like I said, I'm very happy with the direction of the team. Obviously, long term, my goals. So,
and I agree with you on it. And I think I've brought it up with you before on shows that you talk about the confidence and stuff like that on offense. It goes the same way for the goalie. The pressing of a pitcher that knows in baseball that if they give up one run, their team's going to lose 1-0 because their offense is struggling. Carter Hart had to do so much during that losing streak just to keep them in games that it started to snowball a little bit. He had to press. He had to, shrink that net up even more. And that's when you start giving up 5-7 goals a game, because you're pressing. Instead of giving up 2-3 goals and playing loose, you're pressing. You're trying a little too hard. You're making simple mistakes. So the offense scoring more, not only does it help them win games because they're scoring more goals than their opponent, but it's taking a lot of the pressure off of Carter Hart. And again, like I brought up multiple times, Carter Hart's 23 years old. Just like we talk about Tyrese Maxey and how young he is with the Sixers and all the pressure on him right now. There's a lot of pressure on a 23-year-old Carter Hart, and that can snowball. If he loses confidence for too long of a period of time, it could be the end of his career as an elite goaltender, or the potential that he could be an elite goaltender. So, yeah, it's definitely refreshing to see some of that pressure taken off of him right now.
Yeah, and you can kind of go on down the roster. I mean, Cam Atkinson was a guy that coming into the season, we were just excited to not have Jake Voracek. Right. And to add a guy like Cam Atkinson, who actually does have heart and has that kind of persona. But the problem is even Cam Atkinson was struggling, because what happens is even your best players will struggle when the team's struggling, because it's like you said, it's a mentality. So, obviously Cam Atkinson just had a hat trick. So like I said, it's just a lot of good things are happening around this team. So I know you had spoke to me on a previous show. I don't know if it was the last show, but maybe it was last week or right when the coaching change happened. And you had asked me, my thoughts on if they should just get a new coach now, or should they let Mike Yeo ride out the season? If I were them, I would wait, because I think right now I wouldn't change things. I would just see what you have with these players, see what this team can do, kind of before the trade deadline. But obviously, they got a lot of room to make up.
Yeah, the problem is, I know where you're going with that, and yeah, I agree. They should keep Yao as the interim coach for the rest of the season. But the problem, I've brought it up to you before on these shows when we talk Flyers, is that I don't want them to get an unnecessary expectation that all of a sudden, they're making a run, let's trade some young player and be buyers, to use the baseball deadline, because that's actually going to get back further, because this team while they can, any team in the NHL at this point in the season can make a charge and make that last spot in the playoffs. The hockey season is so long, and you get one just as quickly as the Flyers lost 10 games. They can win 10 games in a row, get right back in the playoffs, but they're not good enough to contend for real.
Well,
So,
let's not forget here.
I don't want false hope being given to the GM, Chuck Fletcher, and then him making trades that are going to hurt the long-term big picture of this team.
Well, and let's be realistic here too. You only, out of the 3-game winning streak, you only really beat the Vegas Knights because Arizona's terrible and the Devils are worse than the Flyers. So even though the Devils beat the Flyers, a couple nights prior, when it comes to divisional games, it's always going to be, a tougher matchup. But in the scheme of things,
if they go and win, I'm not making a prediction here or anything, but say they win 3 or 4 more games in a row, and all of a sudden that 10-game losing streak is followed up by a 7 or 8-game winning streak. Now all of a sudden Chuck Fletcher's going to be like, I see that coaching change was just the spark we needed. Let's go trade for another goal scorer. Let's trade some young prospect and get a great defenseman, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden he's going to sell to the fans. The Flyers, the center is going to start filling up again, and he's going to be pumping that positivity to the fan base. That's a little over the top sometimes, and they're going to buy into it. But then next year it's going to be bad.
The blue Kool-Aid will be oozing out of the Wells Fargo Center,
and that's the problem. And that's why, I don't want them to. I don't want fans. I'm not trying to be a negative Flyers fan right now.
You're not.
I want the Flyers to make the playoffs all the time. I want every Philly team to make the playoffs every year. But we got to be realistic. We don't need another Sixers, Andre Iguodala, and Elton Brand's multiple season run where we're just in purgatory for years on end. So that's my fear still with the Flyers.
But it's a legitimate fear because that's the track record. This is the exact problem. With the organization, we talked about it. It's the organizational problem. It's not the Flyers team per se.
Right.
Obviously, there's players that need to go, but this problem has been going on for long before we were even Flyers fans, Phil. I mean, they haven't won a cup since 1976. The problem is there's too many people that drink that Kool-Aid. There's too many fanboys that are so loyal to the team instead of being open and honest and saying we're not going to take it anymore. Yes, they've won 3 games in a row, but let's be realistic. You beat 3 shitty teams. Well, you beat Vegas is not a shitty team, but you beat 2 shitty teams.
I know.
You're now playing tonight. You're playing the Canadians, who are terrible this year. Okay. And then the following game, you play Ottawa. So if you win 5 in a row, but 5 games were against 5 doormat teams, and then you go up against Washington on Tuesday, that'll be the test.
Right.
But if you go up against Washington and you lose 7-1, then you can't tell me that this team is any different than where they were when they lost 10. It's just, yes, momentum is going to change, and of course you're doing better as a team. But I'm looking at this team for the long haul, not what are they going to do this year. So you're right. I don't want them to get their hopes up and then do something stupid. But unfortunately, it wouldn't shock me.
Well, you talk about that, and then we talk where the Sixers Flyers all of a sudden are starting to trend in a better direction. The Sixers last night lose to Miami 101-96. We talked about this terrible, tough stretch. But before we talked about this stretch and how tough it was going to be for the Sixers, which are now 2-2 in this 5-game stretch, which we said if they went 2-3, that was successful. But now looking as this stretch started and went on, and we were 2-1, we beat Golden State. And then you see how they played against the Heat last night. A Miami Heat team that was missing 3 starters. Bam, Bam. We'll just call him Bam.
Bam. Not
Bam.
Margera. Not Bam Margera.
Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, who's not a starter, but is one of their leading scorers, all out of this game. Plus some of their bench guys were out as well. And they lost 101-96 at home to this team. And the Sixers had their entire lineup playing yesterday, outside of George Niang. George Niang was out because of health and safety protocols again, another person on that list. At what point are Sixers fans going to hit I'm ready to hit the panic button. I was a week ago. Scotty told me no. I've been ready to hit the panic button for a while now, that this team is just not good enough. I know all the COVID issues that this team faced. And Tobias Harris, it's the first time he's ever really said anything not positive as a Sixer. And he was asked about the fans not caring that so many players are still recovering from the side effects of COVID. He's like, the players don't care. They just want to see us win. And the way he said it kind of, he's a little frustrated right now. Is it time to hit that panic button? I mean, they should have easily won that game last night. When Dwayne Dedmon is your starting center, when you got guys, G. Vincent, I don't know who Vincent is. PJ Tucker started. You had a guy with his initials here. It's M. Garrett. It almost looks like Miles Garrett playing. Struss, Yurtzi. I don't know who any of these guys are that played on their bench yesterday. And they looked terrible last night. So, panic button or no?
Well, I guess I have a question for you. Okay. So, I'm not as plugged into basketball as you are.
Right.
I know enough to, get around and kind of talk about it. But I guess my problem with the Sixers is, and where I'm confused, is that I was kind of sold a bill of goods that Doc Rivers was going to be like this amazing coach and he was going to be head over heels better than Brett Brown. And I got to be honest, I just don't see it. Now, maybe he was with a different team, but I don't see it. And I'm not saying that the coach is always to blame because at the end of the day, the players are to blame.
Right.
I don't think that Doc Rivers is getting the best out of the players that he has available to him. And I agree. I think it is time to start panicking. If you want my honest assessment.
Let me address the Doc Rivers part of it first. Let's be honest about Doc Rivers. First off, he was not my choice as head coach of the Sixers. I wanted Tyrone Lue. I was adamant about that. He had already coached and won a championship with star players. I thought that if anybody could get the best out of the combo of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, it was Tyrone Lue because he got the best out of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love and stuff like that. He made that work there in Cleveland. Why can't he make that work here in Philly? And Doc Rivers wasn't initially available. Then he became available. He became the hot candidate. The Sixers hired him. I was fine with it. But instantly, I did try to remind everybody that what has Doc Rivers won since he won that title in Boston? Nothing. Boston, after they won the title, fell apart. He went to L.A. and he coached at first with a young, healthy Blake Griffin, J.J. Redd. They had quite the squad there with Clippers. They never got out of the first or second round of the playoffs ever, 4 years in a row. And then that team changed over and they brought in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and he still couldn't win with those guys. Doc Rivers is a good coach, but he's not a great coach. He's got as many flaws, if not more, than Brett Brown in his coaching style. And I agree with you. Coaching, I think actually it's right there with hockey that the coach in basketball doesn't mean as much as it does in football. You got to set the rotations and stuff like that. But it's really, if you've got the rotations right, these players are doing what you teach them in practice and stuff. Look, Doc Rivers is definitely maybe not the answer as our head coach, but he's the guy here. He's going to be here this year. He's going to be here all next year. There's no coaching change coming on the horizon. If they make a Ben Simmons trade, then he's going to be given time to try to adjust with the new personnel around him. My panic is just that this team, it's not just a Ben Simmons trade away from being back to that elite Eastern Conference team.
Tobias Harris is starting to show.
Tobias Harris
is disappointing.
Tobias Harris cannot be the number 2 option on a team. He just cannot be. He could be the number 3 option, but he cannot be the number 2 option. There's too much pressure on him. And I love Tobias Harris. He's one of my favorite Sixers, personality-wise, person-wise, and all that stuff. But, man, Ben Simmons not being in there, that puts so much more on Tobias Harris. And that's sad because he's really cracking under the pressure. Seth Curry, we talked about it earlier this week, is the second best scoring option on this team behind Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey had a good game last night, obviously, 11 of 15 shooting. But he's still a 21-year-old point guard that's starting on a team that should be contending for a title. That's why getting another point guard in here is so important. I'm ready to panic. I'm ready for that trade to happen right now. Because once that trade happens, there's going to be more down moments while players start to learn to play with each other. And then you need time. If you still want to sell a bill of goods, we talked about this with the Sixers or the Eagles, and now with the Flyers, what the GM is selling the fan base. The Eagles are selling playoffs. The Sixers are still selling that this is a title contending team. You go trade Ben Simmons for an all-star or a borderline all-star player. Let's just throw the name out there, Jaylen Brown or Brandon Ingram. 2 hot names right now. You're going to need time to see how that player and Joel Embiid fit together. And then make more trades to kind of tweak around them before the February 10th deadline. If you wait till mid-January to trade Ben Simmons, you're going to have 3 weeks to really figure out what the ancillary moves need to be. That's why I'm hitting the panic button now. That trade, all those players that weren't eligible to be traded till December 15th are eligible to be traded now. This trade needs to happen this week, this weekend, next week. I'm not waiting till Christmas or New Year's for that trade. It's got to happen now because I'm in full panic mode at this point.
I mean, I have to agree. I mean, I think last night's game kind of sent that into overdrive, like the panic, because it's just you want to be patient and you want to say, okay, yes, it's the COVID and this and that, but at the end of the day, you're seeing that the way that the team is just falling apart, like not able to hold leads, and it's just not like they're not playing sound basketball. And regardless of, I'm just not even putting Ben Simmons in the equation right now. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of this team without Ben Simmons and not even making a trade, just looking at it now. They should be able to win a game like last night. Absolutely. And the fact that they didn't is definitely concerning. And it's also, it gets you to the point where you're like, okay, well, and I hate to keep rehashing it, but you said it how many previous shows that it just shows you that Ben Simmons was more important to this team than anybody will want to give credit.
Look, Ben Simmons, we all agreed Ben Simmons had to go. What he did in the offseason and how he handled himself, it was time for him to go. But said it like 100 times. At any point this season, if he said, I was ready to come back, I would welcome him with open arms because you can totally see what, at least in regular season basketball, what Ben Simmons brought to the table. So it's super frustrating because Ben Simmons, you have a superstar player just sitting there that won't play. You mean you couldn't figure out a way? Just look, we could trade you easier if you just come in, keep your mouth shut, and just play. He could have avoided all press conferences. He could have avoided all interactions, with his teammates. He just needs to come in, practice, and play. And he did. He could have come in when we had that 5-game West Coast trip, about a month ago, when Joel and Tobias were out because of COVID. He could have played on the road for 5 games where there was no home fans to boo you. You could have been on showcase for Sacramento and Portland, all the teams that wanted to trade for you. The Lakers, I think, played that stretch. He could have done all that and gotten himself back into the good graces with the team and the fan base by playing on the road for 5 games. And then when he came back to Philly, either he's traded or the fans are going to ignore his, previous transgressions because he's helping us win games again.
Am I wrong or am I right to believe that he's not getting paid right now?
Oh, he's been fine. It was about a week and a half ago. He's been up to 6 times. So he's been fine.
He's not being paid.
No, he's not being paid at all.
I don't understand. Like,
I bet you that number's now about up to $8 million in fines that he has faced.
I guess when you make that kind of money, like, you can get away with not playing.
So the rumors that I've heard so far, and these are like TMZ type reports, is that he's struggling financially now because he lives a pretty high lifestyle. He's Mr. Mini LeBron, Mini LA. He loves his LA style and everything, and his Hollywood style of living. That gets expensive. He just put up one of his homes in Philly for sale. He's got multiple homes and condos in Philadelphia area. Not one. Who needs 3 homes in a city you don't live in 12 months of the year? I have no idea. But he has a very high lifestyle.
Guess he has 3 women that he has to.
Yeah. If he wants to keep getting those Hollywood girls, he's got to live a certain lifestyle. And it's catching up now. Look, full panic mode on the Sixers. Absolutely. Real quick, want to wrap up the show. There's a really great on paper matchup tonight for Thursday Night Football. Kansas City Chiefs are going to LA to face the red hot Chargers. Justin Herbert's been looking much better. Struggled a little bit earlier in the season, but he's been looking better. Obviously, that huge touchdown. They are breaking down all the science of that touchdown throw on SportsCenter yesterday. On a side note, I really missed the segments on SportsCenter when they had the SportsCenter science, where they had that guy with the dummies and the tackling dummies and working all the science. I absolutely loved it. They even did a short TV show. It got canceled where he would do 30-minute shows on sports science. I'm a big sports science fan. So when they start doing some science behind that throw from Justin Herbert the other day to Guyton, I loved it. I love that kind of stuff. But are you excited for this matchup tonight? The Chiefs are a 3-point favorite on the road going up against the Chargers.
To be honest, this might be the best Thursday night football game in like 3 years.
I mean, last game on paper looked terrible, the Vikings-Steelers,
Well,
but it turned into a pretty solid game.
I'm talking about on paper, it might be the best game in like 3 years because you got Patrick Mahomes against Justin Herbert, two of, if not the best, young quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean,
and I think I touched on it yesterday. Patrick Mahomes is young. People forget that he is not an old quarterback.
I mean, come on, they're both young. I mean, it's just Patrick Mahomes just
he's won a Super Bowl. He's already get paid $500 million. That he's this 30-year-old veteran. That's what you mentally think. But he's not. He's a young kid. I bet he's 25, 26 years old.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you look at their stats; they're pretty similar. I'm not, like I said, I know we're not a stat podcast, but obviously Mahomes has like 3,600 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a 95 rating. Herbert has 3,800 yards passing, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 100 yards passer rating. So they're basically neck and neck, as far as how they play. I know Mahomes has been playing better as of late. He kind of went through a real lull where he was struggling. But to me, it's two dynamic offenses and two defenses that are actually playing more consistent. So it's good. I think it's going to be a great game overall and fun to watch. Who wouldn't want to see a play like that? Like that pass to Guyton, I could watch that 100 times and be amazed, like every time.
Absolutely agree with you on that. I actually think the Chargers have a really good chance of winning the game.
I actually do too.
I think they're getting healthy. They got Williams and Keenan Allen back. Eckler's healthy. I'd really like to see the Chargers pull this off and put some intrigue in that AFC West as we go towards the end of the season on who wins that division.
I think obviously it's in the Chargers. It's at home. They got the advantage there. They won the previous game, so you do got to look at the kind of revenge factor for the Chiefs. And Andy Reid, you've talked about how he is. Obviously, I know they weren't just on a bye, but Andy Reid plays better down the stretch. I mean, all his teams have always done that.
Right. When
he was with the Eagles and with the Chiefs. So I'm looking at – I think it's going to be a close game. I agree. I think the Chiefs can win. But, I think the Chargers can win. But I'm going with the Chiefs. Like, if I had my guess.
Yep.
Because of that revenge factor.
I'm going to go 31-28. No. Let's change that. Let's change that. We're going to go 34-31 Chargers win the game. 34-31 Chargers win this game. Yep, we're going to go high. Yeah, and they win by 3.
So you say 31.
34-31 Chargers beat the Chiefs.
All right, and I say 35-32 Chiefs.
Okay. So we're both pretty consistent on the high scoring. We're both 3-point win. That should be a fun Thursday night football game, absolutely. And I can't wait to recap it tomorrow morning on this show.
We'll lock those scores in so we can kind of come back to it.
Before we wrap up the show, I got to give a shout out to my boy Jake over at Talking 215. This guy has been trying his butt off to get Jordan Mailata to come on his show, and I would love to interview Jordan Mailata as well. It just, this guy's taking it to the next level. He's made these great shirts, these M hops instead of the I hops because of Jordan Mailata. He's selling them on his Twitter page. Make sure you check him out at Talking 215. But he also made this music video to try to get Jordan Mailata's attention. And this might kill my internet, but I got to play this as we go off the air. We'll be live tomorrow right here on DSM Media. I'll be live tonight at 9 o'clock for DFS, no pun intended as well. So make sure you stay tapped into DSM Media. But if this does not ruin my internet connection, I am going to play this video off the air here. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk tonight and tomorrow.
Jordan, this one's for you, bud.
I love Jake. Make sure you follow this guy.
He's awesome.
I'm dreaming of interviewing Mailata. Won't you make my dream come true? Where the sports talk glisten, while Philly listens to hear what you have to do. I'm dreaming of interviewing Jordan with every tweet that I write. May your career be cry. And may you always say, fight Eagles, fight Eagles, fight.
That was fantastic. Make sure you give him a follow.
Awesome, man. Absolutely amazing.
That on this man's podcast. I don't even care. I'd rather you on my podcast, but no. After he put himself on the line like
That's
that,
awesome.
got to go on his podcast, Talking 215. Everybody have a great day. Let's all go and go Eagles.
Go Birds.